Good morning, students. We have already completed module 2 and module 3. So now we will be starting with the new module, that is module 5. The module contains lathe machine, milling machine, introduction to advanced manufacturing system, CNC and robots. Okay. So under the syllabus in module 5 we have to learn about lathe, that is principle of working of a lathe machine, different parts of lathes, different operations that is performed in lathes, that is turning, facing, knurling, thread cutting, drilling and taper turning by tailstock offset method and swelling the compound slide method, and specification of lathe. Next, in milling machine we have to learn about the principle of milling, types of milling machines, working of horizontal milling machine and vertical milling machine, and different milling processes like plane milling, end milling, slot milling, angular milling, form milling, straddle milling, gang milling. Next, we have to learn in this next part, we will have to study about advanced manufacturing systems. So advanced manufacturing system means we are going to study about NC and CNC, that is numerical control and computer numerical control. So we will have to study the introduction of CNC. What do you mean by open loop system? What do you mean by closed loop system? What are the advantages of CNC, limitations of CNC, what are CNC machining centers and CNC turning centers? And continuing with the same part of advanced manufacturing system, the next thing we have to study is about robots. So what is a robot? What is a robot anatomy? Different types of joints and links, robot configurations, applications of robots in various fields of material handling, processing and assembly and inspection. So most of the things that you will be learning here is all with respect to the production here, manufacturing and production. The first part we will be learning about the conventional methods which are used in most of the industries like lathe, milling, etc. And then we will be studying about the advanced machining or advanced manufacturing techniques like the CNC and robots. So introduction. So a part, if it has to be produced, it can be produced in basically three types. One is casting, second one is forging, and third one is machining. Right. So basically we have three types. It can be produced in various different processes, but most commonly what we know is casting, forging and machining. So what do you mean by casting first of all? So casting means it is a process in which a metal will be melted completely into the liquid form and then it will be poured into a cavity or a shape of which the final product has to be coming. So for example, if at all you want to make a product, let's say you want to make a ball. So what we do is we create a cavity or a shape of a ball and then we will melt the metal or whatever material you are going to make. Let's say we want to make a mild steel ball. So the molten mild steel metal will be melted and then it will be made to pour into the cavity which is having a shape of a sphere or a ball. So when it is allowed to cool and when it solidifies, it takes the shape of the cavity. So any shape can be produced by making a mold cavity and then pouring the molten metal onto that. That process is called as casting or foundry. Similarly, we have another process that is called as forging. So you must have seen this kind of a process. Forging means you will heat the metal to red hot state. We will not melt the metal here. We are only heating the metal to its plastic deformation state, that is not crossing its melting temperature but slightly below that. So when the metal becomes red hot, it softens and then we apply pressure by the help of hammers and we give the shape of the final product. You must have seen these forging methods that is being usually done in even in streets sometimes if you see that they will have this blower and they will be heating the metal and they'll be hitting it with the hammers. Usually you would see this when making knives and sharp edged tools. Okay, so this kind of process is called as forging. Earlier even the duplicate keys and all those things were done using forging. Okay, and the third operation is called as machining. So machining is a process in which materials will be removed. Okay, the material will be removed. You have a large portion of base metal or initial metal. So what you do is you cut the metal and give a required shape to that, and that process is called as machining. Okay, as per the definition, machining is an operation that can be carried out by either a machine or can be done manually, which involves removal of excess material from the raw material so as to get the required shape and size. So this is what I have told you. So machining is basically a process in which material will be removed, excess material will be removed from the base metal or the raw material, and we get the required shape. So any machine which is involved in this machining operation is called a machine tool, and the process is called as machining. So any particular machine which does the operation of machining is generally called as a machine tool. So any particular machine that we talk today, that is lathe machine or drilling machine or milling machine, are commonly called as machine tool. Okay. So as per the definition of machine tool, it says that a machine tool may be defined as a power driven machine to produce a product by removing the excess material using a cutting tool. So any particular machine tool will have a tool which is called as a cutting tool. The cutting tool may be stationary or it may be rotating depending upon the operation. Okay, there's another part. The excess material that is removed is called as chips. Okay, I don't want you to get confused with the chip that is used in electronic industry and the term that is being used here. In an electronic industry, a chip is a very valuable component or a very important part, whereas when we talk about in the manufacturing process, when we say the word chip, it means it is an unwanted material or a waste. Okay, please do not get confused. That chip is different, this chip is different. When we remove any material from the workpiece, the excess material which will be generally thrown off or as a waste, that is called as a chip as far as manufacturing is concerned. Okay, this I have already listed out. Some of the important machine tools are lathe, drilling machine, milling machine, grinder, grinding machine, shaper, etc. Okay, lathe machine. So lathe machine is defined as a machine tool which is used to remove excess material by forcing a cutting tool against a rotating workpiece. This is very important to know. So the definition of lathe says that lathe machine is a machine tool which removes excess material by forcing a cutting tool against a rotating workpiece. That means the material from which the metal has to be removed, that will be rotating, and the tool will generally be stationary. It will be just placing against the rotating workpiece. So when the workpiece is rotating and when you are placing a tool against it, the material will be removed. And generally, lathe machine is used to produce circular objects. So if any particular object is given and if you want to make a cylindrical object, we have to use lathe machine. Okay, so this is a lathe machine. So as I've told you earlier, there is no drawing of lathe machine included in the syllabus. That is very clearly mentioned in the syllabus that the sketch of the lathe machine is not there. So you will not have to learn the sketch of this machine, but you need to know the different parts of the lathe and also the different operations of the lathe. In spite of mentioning that this is not there, unfortunately this question was actually asked in the previous exam. Okay, that is just concluded first semester exam. There was this question asked on draw the sketch of a lathe machine, which was not supposed to be there, which is not supposed to be there in the syllabus. So I'm sure that this time this won't happen, but last time also, even though this question was asked, since it was not there in the syllabus, those who have attempted the question, the grace marks were considered. Okay, so this question is not there in the syllabus. As per the syllabus, it is not there. Okay, so we'll just go through the different parts of the lathe. Okay, so we have different parts of the lathe. It's called as the lathe bed. We have something called as headstock, tailstock, gearbox and carriage assembly. So in the carriage assembly, we have subparts like the saddle, the cross slide, compound rest, tool post and the apron. Okay, so this is typically an animation that is showing you how lathe machine works. Okay, so all the parts are not there in this, so I will just tell you some of the parts here. The part which is holding the workpiece is called as the chuck. Okay, that is on the left side. So you have left side and the right side. The entire unit on the left side is called headstock and the unit on the right side is called as tailstock, and the portion with blue colored in the center is actually the tool, and the portion which is in between the headstock and tailstock is the workpiece. Okay, so I will call this entire portion is called the headstock and this portion is called the tailstock. This is the tool and this is the workpiece. So we will go back into the sketch. Okay, so here I will try to explain the different parts of the lathe. Okay, so this entire portion is called as headstock and this portion is called as tailstock. Okay, then this entire portion here in the center, which has a couple of wheels in this and a tool will be held on to this one, this portion is called the carriage assembly. Okay, and this is the base or the bed. So this is called as the lathe bed. This is the lathe tray. Okay, and the portion in the headstock itself is called as a chuck. So what is a chuck actually? A chuck is the work holding device. This is a part in which the workpiece will be fitted inside that. So you can see the jaws here, isn't it? So the workpiece will be fitted in this jaw. Okay, now I'll just briefly explain about what are the requirement of these parts and why they are used. So first of all, it is this portion which is called the lathe bed. So the lathe bed is basically used for the supporting the entire structure of the lathe. A lathe is a very heavy component, heavy machine. So it needs a very strong foundation so that it supports the entire moving parts on top of it. So the function of the bed is to support the lathe. So it's basically made up of cast iron because it has good strength and as well as good vibration damping capacity. So it's usually made up of cast iron. And on top of the bed you have the tray. The purpose of the lathe tray is that, so whenever the material is being continuously removed from the workpiece, the chips, what is going to fall, the unwanted material, that whatever is going to fall shouldn't be allowed to fall into the floor. So we have kept a tray in between that so that all the waste materials will be falling on the tray so that it can be cleaned and collected later. That is the purpose of a lathe tray. Okay, then we have the carriage assembly. So in carriage assembly, you could see that there are two wheels. One is called as carriage traversing wheel, which is a bigger one, and then one more is called as the smaller wheel, which is called as a cross slide. The carriage traversing wheel is rotated so that the carriage assembly could be moved in the x-axis or in the linear direction. Okay. And the cross slide, if it is rotated, it will move in, let's say, z direction. Okay, so if I'm saying the left to right movement is x and front and back movement is z, then the traversing wheel would move in x axis and the cross slide will move in z axis. Okay, so on top of that there is a tool post in which the tool will be placed, and the tool will be stationary here. The tool won't be rotating. The tool will be made only to move perpendicular to the lathe machine. Okay, so the workpiece will be fitted in between the chuck and the dead center of the tailstock. The workpiece will be connected there, and you can see the axis showing there. So in that axis the workpiece will be connected, and then the tool will be made to move perpendicular to the axis of the workpiece. Okay, and on the headstock what we have is the controls, that is the gearbox inside the headstock to control the speed of the chuck or the workpiece. Different operations would need different speeds. For example, turning requires high speed, knurling requires slow speed. So the adjustment of the speed has to be made using the headstock controls, gearbox controls. So you can engage different gears so that the speeds can be controlled using the gears. Okay, so we have already gone through the different parts here. Okay, working principle of lathe. So how lathe works? So as I have told you earlier, lathe machine works on the principle that the workpiece will be rotating and the tool is fed against the rotating workpiece. That means the workpiece is rotating and the tool is stationary. So you can see there is a chuck and a workpiece. The workpiece is supported on one end by the chuck and the other end by the tailstock, and the workpiece is held in the jaws of the chuck, and when the chuck rotates which is connected to the headstock, the workpiece will also rotate along with the workpiece, along with the chuck, and the tool will be fed perpendicular to the axis of the workpiece, and when a stationary tool comes in contact with the rotating workpiece, the material starts removing from the workpiece. Okay, the material of the tool will be harder and stronger than the material of the workpiece, hence the material from the workpiece will be removed, since the tool is more stronger than the workpiece. This is the principle on which the lathe machine works. Okay, so as you can see here in the animation, you have a workpiece which is connected through a chuck on the left side and supported by the tailstock on the right side. So as you can see there, the workpiece is rotating and the tool is fed against it, and it starts removing the material. So as you move the traversing wheel, the workpiece will start losing material, and you can see here. So when the traversing wheel is moving, the workpiece material is being removed. Okay. So next is different lathe operations. As I told you, all the lathe operations are important and that can be asked for the examination. So different operations that are performed in the lathe are plane turning, facing, knurling, taper turning, and thread cutting. So first we'll see what is plane turning. Okay. So plane turning is an operation in which the diameter of the workpiece will be reduced. Okay, so turning or plane turning is an operation in which the diameter of the workpiece will be reduced. In other words, I can say the method of machining operation in which the workpiece is reduced to a cylindrical section of any required diameter is called as turning operation. So how to do that? As you have seen in the animation, the workpiece will be fitted within the chuck and supported by tailstock on the other side. It will be having some irregular dimensions, irregular diameter, or say a larger diameter. Now, if you want to reduce the diameter to a specified value, then we perform an operation which is called as turning operation. Okay, so whenever the question is asked on this turning operation, you will have to do the sketch and explain this particular concept. As you can see, you need to draw a chuck, a workpiece, and you can show the initial diameter is bigger, and as you are performing the turning operation, you can see the diameter of the workpiece is going to be reduced. Next operation is facing. So what is facing operation? How is it different from turning operation? So in facing, it is defined as an operation performed on lathe to generate flat surfaces or shoulders at the end of the workpiece. That means it is not used to reduce the diameter of the workpiece. That operation is called as turning. Usually facing operation is usually done to produce a flat surface at the end of the workpiece. Usually what happens is when we have a workpiece which is cylindrical, and when we cut it using a blade or a hacksaw, it will not have a very fine surface finish at the ends. So if you want to give a fine finish at the ends on either end, or if you want to give a small shoulder at the end of the workpiece, we go for an operation that is called as facing. So how facing operation is usually done? As I told you, in the case of turning operation, the workpiece will be rotating and we feed the tool against the workpiece, and then the material will be removed, and then the tool will be made to move from either right to left or from left to right, so that uniform reduction in diameter takes place throughout. But in case of facing, we are not moving the tool from in the X direction, rather we are moving the tool in the Z direction. That means you will be having irregular surface at the end, so you will be connecting the tool to the end of the workpiece, and you start using the cross slide. You will start moving the cross slide so that the tool will move from the outer edge of the workpiece to the center of the workpiece. Okay, so what happens generally is that the workpiece will have a very fine surface at the end. So you will get a very fine surface in the end, either ends of the workpiece. So if you move in the x-axis, the diameter of the workpiece is going to reduce. If you move in the z-axis, the surface in the end will be, the material will be removed there, and you get a fine surface. And this operation is called as facing operation. Next one, knurling operation. What do you mean by knurling operation? So first of all, before explaining the operation, we should know what is knurling and why knurling is done. So knurling is basically defined as an operation performed on the lathe to generate a serrated surface on the workpiece by using a special tool that is called as a knurl tool. The impression of the tool will fall on the workpiece, and that will get that particular impression. So this is basically not an operation where you will remove a lot of material. So this is basically a method where you create a embossing or a surface of a particular texture on the workpiece. Okay, so why this is being done? What is the necessity of giving this texture on the surface? Why is that pattern has to be given on the surface? So this is basically for the gripping purpose. Okay, so as you can see in the sketch here, there are different types of pattern. on the left hand side of the sketch we have something called as straight pattern, angular pattern and diamond pattern. The diamond pattern is the most common patterns that we usually use for the knurling operation for better grip, for better holding purpose. You would have seen these kind of grips that has been applied in various holding in various things. For example, in cricket bats, you usually see that there will be a grip that is on the top of on the bat, usually made up of rubber. Why that is given? That is for the proper gripping between the hand and the bat. The same thing applies for any of the sport, either bats or rackets or anything for that matter. Even the pens what we write, you usually see there will be a rubber surface and some textures made on that surface for proper grip. It can be straight, it can be diamond or different pattern, but the sole purpose of making this particular operation is for providing a better grip. So how this is done? So you cannot use the tool which you have been using for facing and turning. It's a V tool that is being used for facing and turning, a single point tool. For knurling we will have to use a separate tool which is called as a knurl tool. The tool itself will have the pattern already in it, and when you force this tool against the workpiece, the pattern which is there on the tool will have an impression on the workpiece. So the same pattern will be produced on the workpiece. Okay, so can you tell me what will be the speed of operation in this case? For turning operation, the speed has to be very high. For facing operation also, the speed has to be very high. But for knurling operation, the speed has to be very, very slow. Okay, the speed should be very slow. Why it should be slow? Because you have to get the impression of the tool on the workpiece. So that should happen at a very slow speed. You cannot have a very high speed. It will damage the workpiece as well as it will damage the tool. So you can see the animation here, which will tell you how exactly the knurling process takes place. So you can see on the left hand side you have the knurl tool, and on the right hand side you have the workpiece. Initially the workpiece will be flat, it will not have any surface, but when the tool comes in contact with the workpiece and when the workpiece is rotating, the impression of the tool will fall on the workpiece. Okay, so this is how the knurling operation takes place. Okay, so moving on to the next operation, that is thread cutting. So what is thread cutting first of all? So knurling, as I've told you, knurling is an operation of producing a serrated surface on the workpiece for gripping purpose basically. Now what is a thread? A thread is a helical ridge formed on a cylindrical or a conical surface. It is usually cut on a lathe machine when a tool ground to the shape of a thread is moving in the longitudinal direction with uniform linear motion, while the workpiece is also rotating at a uniform speed. Okay, how this is done? So you cannot do it as in the case of turning. So in case of turning, the speed of the workpiece and the movement of the tool will not be, it need not be the same, need not be standard. Even though it requires to move in a proper way to get a proper finish, but the workpiece will be usually rotating at a high speed and tool will be generally moved by the operator in hand. So there will be difference in motions, but that cannot happen in the case of thread cutting, because a thread has a standard pitch value, and depending upon the standard pitch value, the speeds have to be set. Okay, because this particular process, the workpiece will be rotating at some constant speed and the tool will also be moving in the longitudinal direction, that is in the x-axis, from right to left in a particular speed. So it is not possible to manually control the speed of the tool. It should be automatic. Okay, so what has to be done? Depending on the type of thread that is required, the speed ratios will be calculated by certain formula. Anyways, that part is not required for you, how to calculate the speed ratios and all those things. That will be dealt in the practical session in the higher semester. For anyways, for the time being, you need to know that using the gears in the headstock, the speeds have to be controlled and the feed has to be made automatic. And how to make the feed automatic? So I have actually not gone into depth with that particular part. In the lathe machine, there are two things. One is called the feed rod and other one is called the lead screw. So whenever you are going for the manual rotation of the wheel, it will be in lead screw. The carriage will be connected to the lead screw, and when you want to give it automatic, it has to be connected to the feed rod. So now we have to engage the feed rod to the workpiece. Okay, I'm sorry, now it is connected to the lead screw and otherwise it will be connected to the feed rod. I just made a mistake there while explaining. So when you connect it to the gears, it will be connected to the lead screw, and otherwise for the operations such as turning, facing and other operations, generally it will be connected to the feed rod. So now what happens is we have to engage the lead screw so that the speed of the movement of the tool will be automatic at a standard particular speed. Only then it is possible for us to get the particular thread of the required pitch. Okay, so manual operation is not possible here. The calculation has to be done for the speed, and depending upon the speed, the gear has to be engaged with the lead screw so that the tool will move in the corresponding common speed, and the same impression will be created on the workpiece. So it is not possible to create a thread of required pitch in a single pass. There has to be multiple passes has to go through. That's why it should be connected automatically, so that every time the tool will move in the same speed and it will overlap the threads that is being formed. So every time you have to increase the depth of cut and then again give the feed automatic, so that every time the depth increases, the threads can be formed. Okay, after thread cutting, the next operation is taper turning. So there are different methods in which taper turning can be performed. That is called by swiveling the compound rest, by offsetting the tailstock, by using a taper turning attachment, or by form tool method. So in the syllabus you will not have to study all the methods. You will also have to be studying two methods, that is swiveling the compound rest method and offsetting the tailstock method. So first one, taper turning by swiveling the compound rest. So what do you mean by taper turning? First of all, we will see what is taper turning, and then we will see what do you mean by swiveling the compound rest. Now what is the difference between plain turning and taper turning? So in plain turning, as I have told you earlier, the diameter of the specimen or the workpiece will be reduced uniformly throughout. That means if the length of the specimen is say L, so if you perform a turning operation on that and you reduce the diameter, let's say the initial diameter was 22 and you had to reduce the diameter to 20. So after the turning operation is done, if you measure the diameter of the specimen at any point of the over the length of the workpiece, it will be 20. That means from the left hand side to the right hand side, the uniform reduction of the diameter has taken place. It will be 20 throughout. So that process is called as turning. But in some cases we may not require uniform diameter, but we want a constant reduction in diameter from one end to other end. For example, if the diameter of the specimen is 25 on one side and 20 on the other side. So if you want an uniform reduction in diameter, that is the initial diameter, the left hand side the diameter has to be 25 and then at the right hand side the diameter has to be 20, but in between there should be a constant variation. That means 25, 20, I'm just giving an example. Let's say in between it should be 25, 24, 23, 22, 21 and then 20. There should be a constant reduction in the diameter. Uniform reduction in diameter is called as taper. So how do you get this taper? How do you calculate the taper angle? So there is a formula to find the taper angle. So taper angle of the rod at which the compound rest has to be swelled is given by the formula tan alpha is equal to capital D minus small d divided by 2L. Now what are these terms? What is capital D? What is small d? What is L? And what is alpha? Capital D is the big end diameter or the larger diameter that is required for the workpiece. Small d is the small end diameter or the small diameter that is needed. That is, as I have given you an example of say reducing it from 25 to 20, that means 25 is capital D, 20 is small d. What is L? L is the length of the specimen from capital D to small d only. It is not the overall length of the workpiece, it is the taper length. That means from where we want 25 mm till it becomes 20, that length is called as taper length or L. And what is alpha? Alpha is called as the taper angle or half taper angle. So that means what is important here is to calculate the angle alpha. Why is it important to calculate the angle alpha? Because if you keep the tool straight, that is perpendicular to the axis of the workpiece, if we move the tool in the longitudinal direction, you will not get the taper that is required. It becomes plain turning only, right? Because you are keeping it perpendicular, you are giving the depth and you are moving it. So it will move straight. We don't want it to move straight. We want it to move in a certain angle so that initially it will take more material, and as the length decreases, it has to reduce the material removal rate, and at one point it should not touch the workpiece at all. That is the point where capital D is there. So if it has to move like that, then it cannot move perpendicular to the axis of the workpiece. It has to be tilted in such a way that by an angle so that it moves cross. So that is what is represented in the sketch here. I hope you can see the sketch, isn't it? So now if you see, the tool is not kept straight, it is not kept perpendicular to the axis of the workpiece, rather it is inclined to the axis, and that inclination is called as alpha. And how do we calculate that alpha? Depending upon what is the diameter that is required. So what is the taper that you want? Depending on that, the alpha angle is calculated, and depending on the alpha angle, your compound rest, which is actually on the carriage assembly, on top of the carriage assembly where you have the tool post, that compound slide will be tilted. There is a provision in the lathe machine to rotate the compound slide to any angle. So the taper angle, even though you are saying it's not going to be very big, the taper angle is generally going to be very small. It can be either 1 to 2 degrees, 2 to 3 degrees at the max, right? So usually have a taper of 2 degrees or so. It will not be 25 degrees or 30 degrees of taper. It's a very small angle. So we will swell the compound rest. Swelling means turning. So turn the compound rest to that particular angle. So when you turn it to that particular angle, and then we cannot move the carriage assembly, we have to only move the compound slide. Okay. Anyways, when you see this, when you hear to all these things for the first time, you may not be able to actually get what this compound slide is. What do you mean by all these things? So we will when you see the lathe machine in real, you will get to know what do you mean by this carriage assembly, what is this chuck, what is this tool, what is all that I'm talking about. So definitely, if possible, we will definitely go and see the actual lathe machine and then tell you what are the parts, so that you can very clearly understand what I'm talking about right now.